There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Love, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and happy as always to be alongside Joe Stanley. Good to see you, Joe.
Great to see you, Darcy. You know, I love being here, and it is that time of year when the nights are getting colder, the hot comfort meals are getting tastier, and I will admit, usually with that come a little bit of a tighter pair of pants. I don't know why that happens.
Well, I must admit, I love winter. I don't mind the change of seasons, and it gives you something to look forward to with a bit of a summer break and putting the jackets on, particularly down south in Melbourne. You get used to a winter, and I love the winter food as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're replacing salads with things like curries, or I love a slow-cooked kind of, you know, lovely sort of juicy 8-hour... Slow cooker. I love that.
Sounds enticing, Joe. I need to come over and have a dinner with you and Daz at some stage and do that. Now, food can be such an emotional thing too. The taste or smell of a certain food can take you back to a special time in your life. Have you had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. Or music, you know, it's the same thing. It's like a time machine. It takes you right back to that moment. But back to food, our gut is totally hardwired to our brain. The foods we eat impact our moods and emotions as much as our energy and drive.
Which is why the gut is referred to as our second brain. If your gut bacteria is happy, then you'll be happy too. It's as simple as that, Joe.
Well, not so simple to ditch the things that aggravate it, though, you know, like high sugar and high fat foods. Delicious, OK? So very hard to stay off that. But I have to say, as good as some of those foods are, if I have indulged, I hate that feeling where you're really bloated. Like, you've got so much air in there, it's like a balloon. It's so uncomfortable, and it's why when I go out for dinner I wear elasticated pants.
Really?
I call them my eating pants.
No, I think most of us have experienced that at some point. If your pants fit when you put them on in the morning but they don't later at night, it could be time for you to go and visit a gut doctor.
In the gut, there are about 1% of the number of neurons there are in the brain. So if you think about it, the gut truly is a mini brain. What's amazing about the gut-brain connection is that we now know there is a gut-brain axis, and that refers to a signaling mechanism that connects the brain to the gut. And the reason why this is important is because influences on the brain, for example, stress, can affect your gut and cause symptoms, and we see this a lot in conditions like irritable bowel syndrome. So bloating itself is best defined as an increased pressure sensation in the abdomen. And this may or may not be related to visible waist enlargement, which we call abdominal distension. Now, bloating itself is very common, so we know that bloating affects 1 in 6 people worldwide, and 3 out of 4 people that have irritable bowel syndrome will also have bloating. Bloating in the upper gut is typically caused by swallowing a lot of air. It can be caused by chemical reactions, such as the acid in your stomach interacting with the alkali that's in the small bowel, producing a lot of gas, mainly carbon dioxide. And it can also be produced by gas from the bloodstream going into the gut. What we know with lower gut bloating is that some foods which are poorly digested in the small bowel, such as some fats, some sugars, some carbohydrates, when they get into the colon, they get fermented by bacteria, producing a lot of gas. And these gases include carbon dioxide, they include hydrogen, they include methane. And it's that gas which is causing some gas distension and resulting in symptoms of abdominal discomfort. One of the first steps that I would recommend in someone addressing bloating is dietary modification, because if you get less of those foods that are not broken down well by the small bowel into the colon, then there's less fermentation by the bacteria. The second step is to look at the bacteria in the colon, because that's the other part. If the colonic bacteria ferment foods and produce a lot of gas, then it makes sense that if we change the types of bacteria in the colon from gas-producing to non-gas producing or minimally gas producing, that can make a difference. And that's why there's a case for probiotics, which are live bacteria introduced into the gut to help change the microbiota of the colon by producing less gas less symptoms.
So I've been suffering with bloating for about 4 or 5 years now, ongoing. Doesn't make you feel good. I look like I'm 10 months pregnant.
Well, Leonie, I wanted to talk to you today about this special pill. This here is the Atmos gas sensing capsule. This particular pill senses the presence of gas at different levels in the gut. So, for example, it can assess the gas composition in the stomach, the small bowel, and the colon. The great advantage of this capsule is that it's able to transmit signals by Bluetooth to a portable recorder. And that portable recorder is stored in a little pouch or a little bag the patient carries. After the capsule has passed through the person, the information can then be downloaded onto a laptop, and we can get a lot of graphs. From those graphs, we can actually get a sense of the gas composition in different parts of the gut, in the stomach, the small bowel, and the colon. There's so much more that we need to discover about the gut as far as our research is concerned. And I think what's really exciting is that we're now embarking upon an age of discovery when it comes to the gut. We're learning much more about the role of gut microbes and how they interact and how they are so important in shaping human health. So many diseases such as diabetes and heart disease and obesity have now been linked to alterations in the gut microbiota. And so understanding that balance, or should I say imbalance, how it links to diseases, I believe is going to be in the next frontier of research.
Dr. Ho's got it all going on there, hasn't he? But most of us never consider what happens once the food's gone down the hatch. And obviously, for many of us, for me included, it's all about the flavour. But once you've tasted it, it's later when you regret maybe the results of that food and how it feels. And I know, Darcy, you're a celiac, so that must mean you have to eliminate food that perhaps you would ordinarily like.
Yeah, and I found out late in my footy playing days, Joe, with a lot of carb loading and pasta pre-game, I used to then get all of those symptoms and bloating and feel terrible pre-game. But I got so conditioned to it, I just pressed on and didn't really think about it until we changed club doctors, and he was like, what is going on with you? You spend all of the pre-game on the toilet, something's a bit of an issue. So what a relief it was to be able to control your diet, and it's been a game changer for me. We're going to take a break now. Stick around. We'll find out more about what the gut is trying to tell us right after this on the House of Wellness. Now, Joe, there's not many weeks that go by in the House of Wellness where we don't discuss gut health, because I know it is your favourite topic.
Well, yes, some could say that, yes, but it does control pretty much every area of our health, which is why there's so much work being done to identify the trillions of bacteria that live in our gut and to understand what they all do. Here to talk us through the latest science in gut health, welcome nutrition expert Dr. Joanna McMillan. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having me on. Lovely to be here.
Great to see you.
Joe, what exactly is the gut? Because it's not just the stomach, is it?
No, it's not. And I think people often forget that. It's actually from your mouth all the way to the tail end. And everything that happens from top to tail is important for gut health. So often we forget about that, and we talk about our tummies or your stomach, and forgetting that there's actually roles for every single length of your gut has a different role. And it's all quite a complex system. So actually when you understand it, you start to realise, goodness, how much it's doing and how it really is central to our overall health.
So, Joe, what are some of the mechanisms of the gut that we may not be aware of?
A good way to think of it is to think of the microbes as being our partners. We used to think they were just kind of there because it was a nice place for them to live. But now we know they actually help us, one, to digest our food. They even make some nutrients for us, and other compounds they convert into more bioactive compounds that actually then have their benefit. So they are intricately involved with our immune system. And if you think that more than 70% of our immune system is centred in the gut, then you start to understand that level of communication. But they're also intricately involved with the level of inflammation, both in the gut and in the rest of the body, even in the brain. And they're also involved in producing all sorts of different kind of compounds that travel around the body, also including to the brain, and that's how they have their impact on this, on mental health and on our physical health, even in terms of driving our food choices and what sort of diet we might continue to follow. So, we're not quite following the puppeteer and doing exactly what they say, but they are certainly driving some of those food choices and making you, if you eat a rubbish diet, diet, keep eating those rubbishy foods, because the bacteria that are thriving in that environment want you to keep eating that way. Whereas if your default is a really whole food, healthy, fibre-rich diet, then those are the kinds of microbes that are flourishing and therefore sort of driving you to continue eating those foods.
So, Jo, if the gut starts in the mouth, what part does oral hygiene play?
Well, that is an excellent question, Jo, and I'm never asked that question, because I think we've had so much focus in the last few years, mostly about further down. People think about their stomach or their colon, they're starting to understand the microbiome. But actually, the microbiome is also in your mouth. So you have different microorganisms living in your mouth and on your skin, as well as, you know, further down into the gut. And certainly if we had a dentist on the show right now, they would be the first ones to say that there is, last time you went to the dentist, did they ask you, how's your general health? Usually, I certainly know my dentist always asks me that. And there is a direct correlation behind what's going on in your mouth, whether you've got gingivitis. You know, I know when I'm a bit run down, I start to feel my gums being a bit swollen. The oral bacteria that are living in your gut can have a direct effect on all sorts of different health outcomes. And there's also certain foods that can help us with our dental health. The French habit of having cheese at the end of a meal is excellent for dental health because it puts minerals, including calcium, around your teeth and helps to eliminate that acidity.
Very happy to hear that.
Yeah. But what do we do in Australia? We have cheese first and then we eat.
I have
Isn't that
first,
odd?
middle and at the end.
Okay.
It is a running joke on the show that I am obsessed with gut, and it's true. But it's because, to me, it's one of the most powerful things I've discovered where I can make choices that impact how I feel. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. So in the future, can you imagine that there might be a time where we can fully understand our unique microbiome and go, I don't want to feel this way anymore, therefore I know how to fix that?
Absolutely. We are really heading towards a time of personalised nutrition and personalised medicine. I can see within our lifetimes that I will be able to measure your gut microbiome, measure your genes, assess your diet and your lifestyle, and be able to give a very comprehensive kind of, this is a personalised diet for you to maximise based on all of those factors. Perhaps here's a particular probiotic that might fill that gap of what's missing in your gut, or here's a particular lifestyle regime or whatever. There'll be various different ways that we can intervene. And we're definitely heading in that direction, without doubt.
It's very exciting, Jo. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
Now, Jo, I want to talk about Australia's relationship with alcohol. Traditionally, we've cheered on people who drink a lot. We're a culture of, pretty big binge drinkers, in fairness. And when you think about our former Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, was legendary for his record ability to scull a yard glass. So that goes right the way to the top.
Yeah, well, the trend of drinking to get smashed or even drinking at all, though, is changing. There's definitely a move towards mindful drinking or being sober curious, especially amongst younger people. Yeah,
it's true. In the past 20 years, the number of Aussies in their 20s who've chosen to abstain from alcohol has increased from, they say, around 9% to up to 22%.
And that's opened up a whole new market for non-alcoholic drinks. Their popularity is skyrocketing in Australia, and there's a truckload out there to try. So we sent our good doctor, Isabel Carr, bar hopping for a taste test.
On the surface, Brunswick Aces looks just like every other bar in Melbourne. But there's one big difference.
We're the first bar in Australia that serves no alcohol. That being said, we do have everything you'd expect in a normal bar, be it beers, wine, spirits, just no hangover tomorrow.
The recent launch of this booze-free bar shows just how popular these products are becoming. Since 2015, global sales for zero-alcohol alternatives have grown by over 500%. Thanks very much.
Really, everyone is trying to get more and more non-alcoholic drinks in their diet.
Brunswick Aces CEO Stephen Lawrence has witnessed this cultural shift firsthand. In 2017, he and his friends began distilling Australia's first non-alcoholic gin.
We were literally just 5 neighbours that became friends over a love of food and drink. One of our team got pregnant and another one started running triathlons, and so what really happened was that they would just miss out on us making cocktails and sharing that experience together. So we have an engineer and we have a scientist in our team. We put our heads together and decided that surely we can make the same kind of product with that same experience, just minus the alcohol.
So some people wouldn't understand the point of having a non-alcoholic drink, like a non-alcoholic gin. Why not just have a lemonade?
Yeah, well, what we've found is that no one has ever come to us and said, I really like this gin because the alcohol tastes great. It's always about those complex flavours and aromas that you get from the distillation process, in comparison to, say, a soft drink, which is very much based around sugar. So it's very one-dimensional and it leaves the palate quite quickly. When you have an alcohol, or indeed our non-alcoholic product, you're able to get that kind of front, middle and back palate blending together, and it's what lends it to pairing with food or even just a good conversation.
Now, working in a bar like this, you must see everyone sort of come and go. What would you say your demographic was?
It's a question we get asked all the time, and I still don't really have an answer because it is so wide and varied. We see a whole range of people coming in for a whole range of different reasons, be it someone in their 30s wanting to drink a little bit less and be able to get up and do yoga in the morning, or someone that's a bit older that's been told by their doctor that they should be drinking a little bit less for health reasons. 80% of people that drink non-alcoholic drinks also drink alcoholic drinks. So it's very much more about moderating and being able to have a couple of nights off the booze, but without losing out on your lifestyle.
With the growing success of businesses like Stevens, more and more Aussie alcohol producers are catering to this growing market. Mornington Peninsula Brewery owner Matt Beebe recently expanded his range of craft beers to include not one, but 2 alcohol-free pale ales.
Whenever you're making a beer, they sort of like talk about like 4 ingredients. So there's the malt, the hops, the yeast and the water. So when you're looking at Mornington Free, same process, but it's the yeast that's the different component. So normally yeast converts the malt or the sugars to alcohol. This yeast, the special yeast that we get, converts the sugars to esters, which is a flavour profile of the beer. Hence, you don't get any alcohol, or you get very, very little alcohol.
And were you trying to replicate the flavour of a pale ale with this non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah.
Was that really challenging to do?
Sure, I'd love to be able to say that if I had a pale ale and I had a Mornington Pale Free, that they were exactly the same. But they're not, because they're made differently. So there is a slight difference, but I think that if that's your option, that's your choice to have the alcohol-free, then it's a very, very good alternative. And especially if you come to the bar and you're the designated driver and the choice is to have an alcohol-free beer and look like and be part of that whole experience.
In the first year, the Mornington Free has become our second biggest seller out of all our products. Mainly driven by millennials and actually the older generations looking for an alternative to drinking heavy beers or any alcohol for that fact.
In Australia, sort of hanging out with friends, it's often synonymous with having a drink as well. Do you think there's still stigma around people choosing not to drink?
I think there is, but it's definitely changing, and having alternatives that are so like beer or so like a spirit actually helps that shift in people's perceptions.
While most manufacturers of these drinks are doing their best to mimic the taste of the real thing, there are a few refreshing exceptions. Melbourne's Aaron Trotman is thinking way outside the box with his wine alternative company, Non.
If you mimic, you're already off the mark. We're taking a much different approach where we're trying to show them something, a different way of thinking.
Aaron has collaborated with culinary experts to roast, toast and stew a wide variety of ingredients.
We're looking at floral, tannin, salinity and acid, all those things that you would know that are in wine, but rethinking it.
So tell me what I'm supposed to be tasting and smelling here.
So you're getting raspberry and chamomile on the nose. We use fresh raspberries, so we get a nice tart profile and flavour in there. You'll get the chamomile in the finish and a salty back end as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It has a really full flavour profile, and yet it tastes nothing like wine. It's definitely not trying to be a wine. It's something of its own.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Rish, you've come on as the General Manager of Non. Where do you see it going in the future? What would you like to see for Non in, let's say, 10 years' time?
So in an ideal world, I think non-alcoholic should be fully embraced by all cultures. If someone's asking why you're not drinking, we should be asking why you are drinking. I think no one asks the question to a vegetarian why you're not eating meat. It doesn't exist in our culture anymore. And I'd like the non-alcoholic to get there as well.
we see that this category is here to stay and will be as established as the alcoholic one in, perhaps just 5 or 10 years.
Well, cheers to that.
Indeed.
Oh, it makes me want to stock up. Some amazing flavour combinations there.
Yeah, I'm keen to give the non-alcoholic beer a try. I think the flavour is good and you're out with a bunch of mates at a bar. It's a great alternative, particularly if you're driving and you still want to have that social aspect as well. So you're in part of the group, you're holding a beer, you can hold a conversation, but maybe you don't feel excluded. I think it's a huge future in it.
Yeah, you're right. And I like the fact that some of these new non-alcoholic varieties are not trying to replicate or mimic wine, but create new tastes with all kinds of new ingredients. And it's about the fact that it's kind of an adult flavour. You know, it's not fizzy drinks or sugary. There's that real adult palate about it, which I love.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a whole new way of thinking and approaching how and what we drink, and it's great to have options, as you said, Jo.
Well, one thing that drinking alcohol heavily can do is compromise the body's immune system. And with winter and the dreaded cold and flu season approaching, looking after our immune system should be on top of everyone's to-do list.
What I love about the health space, Sarah, is that there's so many different nutrients from a variety of different sources that keep us well in a multitude of various ways.
But Luke, you can really see how it's so easy for us to get overwhelmed. I mean, take our immune system, for example. Vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin Z. Is that a vitamin?
No, I think vitamin Z is not a vitamin, but you were spot on with the other two. Antioxidant-rich nutrients like vitamin C, selenium, zinc, they all help fight against free radical damage, which eventuates to illness. They are the big-ticket nutrients when it comes to supporting our immune system health.
What about the sunshine vitamin?
Vitamin D. Yeah, well, that works slightly differently in that it stimulates healthy immune system response to fight infection. Now, of course, this is important to have it all year round, but in particular in the colder months when we're more susceptible to catching the common cold and flu.
Ironically, though, that is the time of year where we get the least amount of the sunshine vitamin. But thankfully, these nutrients are available in supplement form.
Hey, Sarah, I just realised vitamin Z is a thing and it stands for vitamin zonked because I am tired. All these lights, cameras, the showbiz.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you can tell.
How dare you?
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Bioceuticals Armour Force Daily Protect for proactive immune system support. Found exclusively behind the counter, speak to your healthcare professional for specially formulated relief.
Love is in the hair. That's right, I said love is in the hair. For many, that hair can be fine and flat. So to get a bit of oomph, get a bit of volume, get a little bit of texture in your hair, we're always going to turn to the land of beauty, my favourite country, France. And now when I think of France, I think of one of their amazing hair care brands, the go-to, Chlorane. Chlorane's organic flax range is designed naturally to support and lift hair from the roots. The volumizing ritual begins with a shampoo and conditioner, and it's formulated with a flaxseed fibre extract. It leaves your hair feeling healthy and looking more voluminous. For in-between washes and to extend the life of any hairstyle, dry shampoo is the holy grail. One, to give you that beautiful, clean, fresh hair that we often need when it's oily, and two, to add grit to the hair that really helps when styling. And we can't forget, dry shampoo has a positive impact on the environment. In fact, you can save 500 litres of water a year with replacing one hair wash with one application of Chlorane's XL Volume Dry Shampoo per week. Like the rest of the range, it has flaxseed fibre extract and also highly absorbent texturising powders, and it cleanses your hair all without the use of water. My hair has so much power in defining how I feel for that day, and I don't think I'm alone at all. And that's why I love what I do and I love the beauty industry. It's because the beauty industry provides a solution for people who may not feel that good about something. So it's all about confidence, it's all about hair. Love is in the hair. Doo-doo. The end of it was too hard.
Jade Kay there with the quick fix for getting your do in order in just 2 minutes. You've got to love that, Dar.
I'm going to take your word on that one, Joe. Now, someone who's very well known for their blonde top knot is one of my favourite Aussie sports stars, Madison de Rosario. She is an absolute superstar on the track who took out 2 gold medals at last year's Tokyo Paralympics. One was the T54 wheelchair marathon. And what a highlight of the Games that was, Joe, seeing her win the 42-kilometre endurance race by just 1 nail-biting second.
Oh, it was such a great race and a career milestone for Maddie. She's a passionate speaker and incredible role model with her very own Barbie doll lookalike. But as we discovered, her road to sporting glory didn't begin on the racetrack.
I grew up in WA and basketball is the big, Paralympic sport over there. It still is. And so that was the first one that I tried. And I remember trying it 3 or 4 times and I was terrible. I was absolutely terrible. The idea of having to catch, throw, navigate like the court, the chair, all of it was just completely beyond me. And so the man who coached it was a man named Frank Fonta, and it's a small community, so he coached quite a few of the sports. And he basically pulled me to the side, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is like 100% the vibe, basically said, "You're terrible at this, you're not an asset to this team whatsoever, do you want to try something else?" And he had a track chair in the storage room. So I jumped in this race chair in the parking lot of this basketball stadium and absolutely fell in love with it.
I started working with Madison when she was 14, so a very long time ago, and it was brought to my attention she was coming over to Sydney for some games over here, and I was told to come along and see what I thought. And yeah, we just had to get her in a chair that fitted her, and yeah, she had a lot of potential.
I think even as someone who'd been in a chair most of their lives, switching to a race chair is completely different. It's not a piece of mobility equipment, it's definitely a piece of sporting equipment, and it's entirely different. So I think a lot of wheelchair racing that you don't necessarily notice while watching it is how much skill and technique kind of goes into the push. It's less so a power sport and more a technical sport.
We're a little bit different. I'm extremely competitive and she's not. But yeah, it's just different ways of getting the best out of her and getting her to win and getting the best out of her in terms of what she can do and being the best person and the best athlete. So it's not all about winning sometimes. It kills me to say that. But definitely, there's a lot of things that we set goals for in a race, and it's not necessarily winning the actual race. There's different components that we have goals for.
It has to be how I have to get ready to race is so regimented because I can't force myself to want to win a race. Like I don't have that in me, and for a long time there I thought that the sport wasn't going to be for me or sport in general wasn't going to be my thing specifically because of that. And I think everybody that I'd seen around me was this fierce competitive person, and I think Louise summarizes all of that. I think if you think of what an athlete is, it's Louise Savage, and she's basically everything on the track that I'm not. Like, I think as a personality and that mental approach to racing, we're polar opposites. For me, it was definitely wanting to see how far I could go and be the absolute best version of myself. And I'm in a career where if I bring the best version of myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, if I can put all those pieces together, I could potentially on that day, on that track or on that road, be the best in the world. I love how much we turn up for sport in Australia. It's one of the best things. And I think that one of the things with sport I find is its impact on community, right? You recognise it and you try and do everything you can with your platform to have the best possible impact, but you don't always see it. But for Com Games, I think we really did. The amount of kids that we saw after that marathon who I think if you talk about the disability side, who'd never seen someone who looked like them celebrate in the way that we were celebrating our athletes, just as athletes, I think it would have been one of the first occasions that young kids with disabilities saw people that looked like them celebrated as humans, which I know the bar is on the floor in that statement, but that's the reality of it. I think our entire identity is wrapped up in disability, and that's not fair. You don't get to be an entire human with that stigma associated with everything you do. And Com Games was one of the first times that you would have not seen that. You would have just seen athletes as athletes, people with disabilities in the green and gold racing for Australia, and that was it. And the fact that we had so many kids out there on the road for that marathon, getting to see it firsthand, and the amount of kids that would have seen that on their screens is absolutely unreal. One of the biggest, I think, challenges as an Olympic or a Paralympic athlete is your whole life is in a 4-year cycle. And so I think with the postponement and the potential cancellation that was going to happen, it isn't just, you know, oh, this year's been thrown into a bit of jeopardy. It's kind of 4 years of your entire identity is being thrown into jeopardy. I think the minute Rio wrapped up, you now became an athlete training for Tokyo. And as an athlete, you're not just there when you're training. I think every decision you make on and off the track is about how do I be the best version of myself come Tokyo. And the mental flexibility you have to be okay with whatever's going to be thrown at you is, I think, a hard thing to learn without the pressure to need to do it. But we've all kind of been able to learn how to do that because we've had to. And I think, you know, going forward, we're going to have just a really resilient group of humans, I think, on a pretty extreme scale now. Having people with disabilities in a spotlight does one thing in 2 steps. And the first step is representation. That person isn't necessarily there in an entirely tokenistic way. They do get to be an entire person in that space. But through representation, that person is still there representing every person with a disability. The next step is authentic visibility. And that's what we're leaning towards in sport, where I think in Australia we're nearly there in sport, where our athletes with disabilities are just that, they're athletes with disabilities, but they're athletes first and foremost. And in that space, you get to be an entire person. You're an athlete, you're a person with a disability, you are whatever else you choose to be in that space, and you get to see all of that. And this is a similar burden that we put on women in every industry, but women in sport specifically. You know, that's what we're referred to as women in sport. We're not athletes. And if we have more visibility in those spaces, we're giving permission for young kids with disabilities to be an entire person. They're not seeing a person with a disability being treated well in a spotlight. They're just seeing an entire person that looks like them. And that is the space that I want to take up and create. And I think for me, if I could do one thing with this platform, it's create the space for anyone but kids with disabilities to be the most authentic versions of themselves and not be held to any ridiculous stigmas that's set before them. That was such a long answer, I'm so sorry.
I can that, Stephen. That's so good. I'll cut it up and have a chat with you.
Hydrated skin is healthy skin, and for that plump, glowing complexion, the magic ingredient we are looking for is hyaluronic acid. It's a tricky one to say, but well worth its place in our morning skincare routine due to its ability to help the skin hold over 1,000 times its weight in water. The new Swiss Beauty Glow Booster Duo combines 2 times the power of hyaluronic acid for twice the targeted benefits. Modern skincare is not just about what we are topically putting on our skin, but we also want to create beauty from within. That's why this combo is scientifically backed to support glowing skin from the inside out. The Swiss Beauty Collagen and Hyaluronic Acid Booster contains ingestible hyaluronic acid. Also included are collagen peptides and other skin-loving ingredients like vitamin C to support collagen production, improve skin elasticity and skin firmness. Now, to maintain the hydration on the outside, we compare the supplement with the Swiss 2% hyaluronic acid vitamin B5 Glow Booster Serum. So this would go on after you've got a clean, fresh base, but before your thicker moisturizers and SPFs. Moisture is locked in for visibly smoother, plumper skin. Our skin is such a big part of our overall confidence, so it's so important to invest in our skin's health from the inside out. After all, our relationship with our skin, it's for life.
Jade Kay there, helping us to love the skin we're in. And from plumping our skin to keeping our muscles loose and limber, Darcy, I know we're supposed to stretch. I never stretch, ever. Because it hurts me. But I'm assuming that stretching was a big part of your footy when you were playing.
It is a big part, absolutely, no doubt. And in later life, I've got into a bit of yoga too, Jo. So I think you'll love it. Have you ever tried some yoga or not?
Oh, I've tried yoga, yeah, but it hurts, the stretching. And people, I know when you're getting a little bit older, as I am, you're supposed to stretch to keep your body moving. And it hurts. And particularly when I see footy players and they're getting worked on, like by the physios. That looks really hard. Like, does it hurt?
I think that's part of just how it works, Joe. A bit of physio on the sidelines and a bit of stretching is all part of the game. But I know if you haven't done it for a long while and you start again, you just got to push through that little bit of pain, Joe, and then there's a lot of joy at the end of it if you can get to that stage.
Well, to get the most benefits from stretching, some people swear by an extra hand. Assisted stretching is having an expert guiding those tired muscles through positions and blissful bouts of massage. And as Sarah Davidson found out, it's stretching DARS, but not as we know it.
And breathing in, that's it. And breathing out. Focusing on your belly for breathing. Assisted stretching is a bit like stretching yourself on steroids, you know, because you're getting a really intense session in one go. So it's pretty much been proven that what you would achieve yourself in a month, you can achieve in one session because you're going that much deeper and you're getting a really comprehensive stretch. And push towards me. 5, 4, 3, 2. 1.
You know, when I hear the word stretch, I think of something kind of soft and gentle, almost quite relaxing. But can it involve a bit of exertion?
I guess the ideal is that you don't have any pain as such. It is just you go to a level at which you feel a nice feeling of tension. And then we do use a technique which is called PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, PNF, or contract and release. So in order to get deeper into the stretch, you resist against the stretch therapist and then go that bit deeper. So there is an active component and then going deeper and getting that sense of relaxation. And it is a really amazing sense of release because you're getting that combination of tension and then relaxation.
I came here because of injuries through cycling, so I was looking for a remedial thing, and so the remedial work worked a lot quicker than I thought it would. I mean, for example, I could go down to here and touch my here, and after a month or so, I'm touching the floor. I could not believe it.
And tell me when to stop. About 7 out of 10. Yeah.
What sort of reasons do people come to try out assisted stretching?
People that exercise a lot and it just stiff and sore and, you know, need to combine stretching with their exercise. Then I've got people who don't exercise at all and they use stretching as their primary source of exercise. And then I've got people who have particular issues like back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, and then people with disability, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, etc., who've got extreme tightness, and the assisted stretching is, a highly effective way for them to relieve that muscle tension. And pushing back towards me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
For me, the reduction of pain, and I can do things again, and I have the quality of life when I'm out. I'm not constantly feeling that, back and neck pain. But I think it's more than just what it does to the body. I mean, obviously I'm much more flexible than I used to be, which is great. But I think it does something to the brain. It really centres you, and I think it is a holistic body workout when you come.
And turn in.
And how often do you think that we should be stretching, whether it's assisted or at home, just in general in our lives? What would be an ideal amount of stretching?
Probably ideally you'd stretch every day. That might not be a full-on session, but you'd be stretching somewhere where you're feeling tight. So when you're walking through a doorway, putting your arms into the door and leaning in, or stretching your calves because they're feeling a bit niggly. So every day, but, a good session at least once a week. Breathing in, this will stretch your upper pecs.
And how do you feel immediately after? Do you find the results instant?
Yeah, definitely. You can feel it throughout the session, and then afterwards you just feel lighter and kind of bouncing down the street and, feeling really good.
Feet underneath your knees, that's it, coming up, and arms right over the top.
Sounds like there's something in it for everyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs to stretch, and we all know we need to stretch. I think it's pretty well known. It's just a hard thing to do yourself. It's hard to do. It's boring. A lot of people say, it's really boring. And they tried yoga, and for a lot of people, it's either not for them or they find it really difficult to get into the stretches. So when you're lying on a bed and somebody's moving you around, it's amazing what you can achieve.
Food
family, and a phone. Roast pumpkin. Determined. To fly. Drink water. Don't think I have one. Cooking roast pumpkin. Chocolate. Summer. Dakar. Busy. Breakfast. Spiders. Hiking. The happiest man on earth. Motorsport. My most treasured possession. I don't know if I've got one. My kettle. Oh. I don't know. I don't have like a favourite song. I don't even, yeah. Whatever my boyfriend plays, he's got a better taste in music than me. I just listen to whatever he puts on. It's good.
Wow, what a talent, Joe. Molly was the first woman to win the Australian Rally Championship and the youngest, regardless of gender, at the time. In 2015, she was also awarded the prestigious Peter Brock Medal.
Her mum is four-time Australian Rally champion co-driver Coral Taylor, so motorsport runs in the family. And last week we looked at the push to get more female drivers into Formula One. So, Darcy, can you see any of your kids, daughter or sons, pursuing motorsport?
I'm not sure that we've bred any drivers as such at this stage, Joe, but having said that, I'm obsessed, and I've spoken about this last week, of what Drive to Survive has done to increase numbers in motorsport, the Netflix show based on Formula One. I'm obsessed with Formula One now. That has just brought the stories to life for me. Have you seen it, right?
No.
You need to
no, I'll check it out this weekend.
Do that for sure. That's our show for today. You can check out the House of Wellness website for more on anything you've seen on the show today.
You can hear me and Gerald Quigley on the House of Wellness radio show every Sunday.
And thanks, as always, to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you again soon.